If you can't seem to be productive with your business in a way that makes meaningful sales, we are going to fix that. You might be using a system that's holding you back. I have used all sorts of project management tools and none of them really worked for me. But this 3-minute system helped me build a jewelry business that makes $176,000 in sales per year. And that's just the revenue for one of my 5 businesses that I run. Today, I'll show you how this system works so you can spend your time more efficiently and start focusing on what actually grows your creative business. Okay, let's start with what this system is. Now, if you're in the habit of creating daily to-do lists, but you seem to either never seem to finish everything or it doesn't seem to help you get meaningful stuff done, you're not alone, okay? It is normal for almost half of the things to not get done. But what if the problem actually isn't your productivity and it's not you? What if it's the daily to-do list system itself? From what I've learned, daily planning systems are fundamentally flawed for creative business owners. Let me explain why. Earlier in my polymer clay jewelry business, I was obsessed with planning my entire day. I would wake up, create this ambitious list with like 10 tasks, and then I would feel completely defeated when I only managed to complete like one thing. So I remember one particular Thursday afternoon, I had planned to finish this big wholesale order, so I was going to spend all of my day making charms. But then I got this email from the wardrobe stylist of the TV show Parks and Recreation, you know, the one with Amy Poehler in it. And it was an unexpected email asking me to overnight them a bunch of my products to her. My entire day went down the drain because I had to drop everything to figure out how to even do that for her. I had never overnight shipped anything to anyone before. So even though what happened was obviously a very good thing for my business, I went on to make like $20,000 the first month that one of my necklaces was on that TV show. This pattern was repeating itself week after week. What I mean by that is that there were a lot of unexpected challenges or opportunities constantly derailing my daily plans. Like some days I was tired maybe from like poor sleep, or if I was sick, or maybe creatively speaking, I wasn't in the right place, I wasn't inspired. And because I'm a multi-hyphenate creative with a lot of things that I'm juggling at once and so many things I want to do, often events outside of my control crop up that require my time and completely veer me off my schedule. Now, I am not a parent, but I can imagine a lot of parents probably feel this way. So from my experience, daily to-do lists fail creatives and artists in business for 3 main reasons. Number 1, they don't account for the unpredictable nature of life and creativity, the ebbs and flows of that, and just business. Number 2, they create artificial time constraints that stifle creativity. And number 3, they focus on quantity of tasks rather than what I think is more important, the impact of the task. Daily planning, I find, has a more rigid structure and it creates a false sense that you have control over exactly when you'll do things, but creative work rarely follows such a predictable path. You need a system that provides structure but also allows for flow and flexibility. And that's where weekly planning comes in. What if you could reduce how much time you spend planning and actually increase your productivity in a meaningful way, as in you're actually starting to see your business growing because of what you choose to do, and then still have the flexibility to go with the flow in your creative business, and then having leftover time to pursuing the things that you're passionate about. My weekly planning system does exactly that, and it takes just 3 minutes to set up each week, and this simple shift has been the foundation of how I built multiple 6 to 7 figures per year businesses while maintaining my creativity, sustaining my energy, and avoiding burnout. So let me show you how it works. So I actually learned this system from my good longtime friend, Stacy Trock, who is many things, but most relevant to this video, she used to run Fresh Stitches, an amigurumi business. She later sold that quite a few years ago. Stacey is possibly the most efficient and productive person I know who gets so much stuff done, and she's also an amazing single parent. Just FYI, she has a great travel YouTube channel called Travel with Stacy, if you want to check that out. And we were masterminding many years ago, right? And I was shocked to learn that she doesn't do daily planning, because I thought that's how everyone does it. But she does weekly instead. It's so simple. So instead of planning each day, I would plan just once for the entire week at the start of the week. So on Monday morning, I would sit down with a blank sheet of paper and listed only the highest impact tasks I needed to accomplish that week. And I would purposely use a smaller notebook-sized paper so I didn't overload the list with too many things. And I did not assign specific days to each task. I just committed to completing them sometime during the week. The difference was immediate, because it was so easy to do and it was life-changing. When last-minute opportunities come up, I have the flexibility to say yes without throwing off my entire schedule. I'm also an actor here in Los Angeles, and I have auditions, right? I might get a request to audition for something with a 48-hour turnaround time, which is a big deal and a very important thing for me to prioritize. But let's say I spent 2 days working on this audition, I still have 3 days, 5 if you count some time over the weekend, to work on finishing what I put on my to-do list, which gave me this sense of accomplishment rather than the usual feeling of falling behind, because the tasks didn't have specific day deadlines. Usually for me, the bulk of my list gets done on like Monday or Tuesday, then I get to rest a bit on Wednesday and maybe a little bit of Thursday if I need to, and then I put in deeper work again on Friday. So here's exactly how you can implement this weekly planning system for yourself. First, choose one day each week, like Sunday evening or Monday morning, to do your planning. I personally prefer Monday mornings because planning does feel like work to me, and I would prefer not to do work-related things on the weekends, although I do sometimes work on weekends, depending on the season of business I'm in. So get out a simple sheet of paper or your planner. Make sure this isn't a huge sheet of paper. My current sheet, I'll show you this really cool notepad that I have. It has space for 13 tasks, and that works well for me. So for you, maybe list no more than 7 to 10, maybe 13 high impact tasks for the entire week. Now, don't assign specific days to tasks at first, but you can do that as you start getting into the work and you have a good sense and rhythm of your schedule and capacity for the week. Then each morning, look at your weekly list and choose what feels right for that day. And at the end of the week, carry over any incomplete tasks and reflect on why they didn't get done. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. The magic of this system is that it combines structure with flexibility. You are committed to completing important tasks for the week, but you have the freedom to work on them when you have the energy and inspiration. It keeps your focus on high impact activities while eliminating the guilt of rigid daily plans, which can be very demoralizing if you feel like you're constantly falling behind. The secret to having multiple successful online businesses isn't just a weekly planning system. It's specifically also filling that system with the right tasks. Most creative people waste 80% of their time on activities that generate only 20% of the outcome, like sales. But what if you could flip that and focus primarily on the 20% of tasks that actually deliver 80% of your success? When I got so good at this skill that it became second nature, and I even feel like I'm allergic to busy work now that wastes my time, my business started to take off in a huge way. This is the sort of thing my Nerdy Creatives Club is all about. We focus on the low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff that you can do that makes a huge difference in your business to multiply your sales, grow your profit while working less. Our members are having incredible results, like doubling their sales from just a couple of months, getting bigger orders, getting more sales. So if you're making like a sale every week already and you want to level that up, check out the Nerdy Creatives Club. I have a link in the description below. Now, let me show you how to identify those high impact tasks for your creative business. In my earlier years of going full-time in my business, I was working nonstop, right? Creating products, posting on social media multiple times a day, on different platforms, redesigning my website, and attending every good craft show I could find in the city. I was working 60 plus hours a week and making less than $3 per hour. Then I had a conversation with my husband, who was also slaving away at a corporate job at the time that he didn't love, and it was draining his soul. But he saw I was working so much, but with very little to show for it after a year. So he sat me down and he asked me a simple question: what are you doing? So after I got over the shame and the guilt for letting him down and not pulling my weight, I started to honestly assess my time. Where was it going? And I realized that most of my sales had come from media outreach, which is getting my products featured in magazines and blogs and on other people's platforms, instead of trying to build up my own following one person at a time. Everything else I was doing, the constant social media posts, the website tweaks, the craft fairs, they were all delivering returns, but very minimal returns for the huge time investments that I was putting into them. So I focused completely on doing media outreach for the next few years. That is it. And my sales went from a part-time income. It started like the first full-time year I was at, I was making $9,000 that year, to $200,000 in annual sales in, I think, 3 years from just doing media outreach. Here is how to identify your own high-impact tasks. First, look at your last 10 to 20 sales. The more the better if you have more sales data, and trace them back to their source. start to identify patterns in what's actually generating revenue. And then categorize your activities into two groups. High impact, which is what directly leads to sales, that also takes up the least amount of time, relatively speaking. The energy has to be proportionate to how much money you're making, right? And then the low impact tasks, which takes up a lot of time to do and doesn't really bring in that many sales that it doesn't feel worthwhile. Be ruthless about limiting low impact tasks, even if they feel productive or they feel like something you can control and do more easily. It could just be that you're more comfortable doing those things, which is not the same thing as it being effective for you and your business. For most creative businesses, high impact tasks typically fall into these categories. Direct marketing activities like email marketing, pitching to the media, optimizing your products, building out systems that save you time, activities that build you leverage income, which are strategies that generate you ongoing profit over the long term without your direct involvement in making that money, and creating evergreen content that positions you as an expert for longer lasting platforms like YouTube. You will notice I did not mention social media in there. If you want to learn more about how to do media outreach and email marketing, I have a free workshop below that goes more in depth in those things, because I kind of do believe for myself and for a lot of people that social media is a low impact task. So once you get used to seeing those patterns, you can do this weekly planning like 3 minutes tops. The key is to be honest about what is actually driving results versus what just keeps you busy and feels comfortable to do. Now let's talk about what to do when some tasks keep showing up on your weekly list because they're never getting done. This pattern is frustrating, I know, but it is also valuable information about your business. When I learned to read into my task resistance, it completely transformed how I approach my work and eliminated the guilt I felt around procrastination. This insight might be the missing piece in your productivity. For example, last year I was working with a photographer for my jewelry business, right? We had worked together for a long time already. She created beautiful photos for my website and for my social media, and she was so great at doing her work independently and rarely needing my input on things, which for a busy business owner, I really appreciated. However, her recent shoots around that time weren't quite hitting the mark for me. So I decided, okay, we needed to sit down together and get on the same page, have a meeting. So I put that meeting on my to-do list, but I found myself procrastinating on that meeting week after week. I kept carrying it over to the next week. So when I slowed down to ask myself, why did this keep getting pushed back repeatedly? What was I resistant to, or what was making this task so difficult for me that I couldn't just do it? It was actually twofold when I sat down and thought about it. One, the meeting was actually too big of a project for me. Turns out there are actually a few other smaller tasks I needed to do before I set up the meeting with her. I needed to have some agenda or structure for the meeting, like what were we going to talk about? And I needed to get clear on what was wrong with her previous work that I didn't like, and what was my vision or my goal instead for us to work towards. But because I was too lazy to think about what I wanted, I kept hiding from this meeting. And honestly, I was probably scared to decide on anything because what if it was the wrong direction? So I broke the task down into smaller pieces. I took a few minutes to put my ego aside, which makes me fearful and also makes me overthink, and just being honest about what I wanted, not feeling shame or guilt around it, and then finding some inspiration pictures on Pinterest that then helped me get clear on the agenda. And so finally, reaching out to my photographer and having the meeting was really so easy peasy. If this happens to you, here is how to handle task resistance in your weekly planning system. When a task carries over for like 2 to 3 weeks, stop and reflect. Ask yourself, what am I resisting with this task? So consider some of these common reasons for resistance, which I have seen in myself. Number 1, the task is too big and needs to be broken down further, like I talked about. Number 2, you don't have the skills or resources to complete it yet, which is totally normal. Number 3, deep down, you maybe don't believe this task will impact your goals, so maybe it shouldn't even be on your list. Number 4, you're maybe afraid of something like I was and often am with things I procrastinate on. So based on your insight, either break the task into smaller, more manageable pieces first. You can also delegate or outsource it if possible. You can also replace it with an alternative that achieves the same goal. You can simply remove it if it is simply not essential. Or have a really honest conversation with yourself about what is scaring you and how you might overcome that fear. Task resistance isn't a character flaw, okay? So please don't beat yourself up over it. It's actually really valuable feedback that your intuition is trying to give you. When you can learn to be aware of it and respond to it, your weekly plans become much more effective and aligned with your goals and your personality type. Now, weekly planning doesn't just make you more productive, it also fundamentally changes how you think about your creative business. When I switched from daily to weekly planning, something I didn't expect happened. I started making better strategic decisions that led directly to making a lot more money. This shift in perspective might be exactly what your creative business needs to reach that next level. So after I started weekly planning, I noticed something interesting. Because I was planning at the week level rather than at the day level, I naturally started to think about my business in broader, bigger terms. Instead of getting caught up in all the little nitty-gritty, tiny details and the minutia, I was regularly asking myself bigger questions like, is this product line really working? Or should I be focusing more on wholesale or retail? Or what do I need to pivot on from my marketing to make it work better? Those were the kinds of bigger questions that led to driving my business in the right direction. And it helped me not get lost in the weeds of what trending audio should I use for my reel today, or what color font should I use as text in my emails, or what emoji should I put in my subject line. Because in the grand scheme of things, that is not going to make a meaningful difference on the bottom line. Weekly planning keeps your focus on the big picture in 3 important ways. It creates a regular rhythm for strategic thinking, forcing you to evaluate whether your tasks align with your larger goals for your business. It prevents you from getting lost in the day-to-day details that can blind you to larger patterns and opportunities. And it creates space for your creative mind to make connections and see possibilities that aren't visible when you're in reactive mode, that I find happens more often when you're doing daily planning. So to get the most out of the system, use your weekly planning session to not just list out tasks, but to reflect on the previous week's results. Ask yourself if your tasks are aligned with your overall vision and long-term goals for your business. And notice which activities energize you and which deplete you. This is valuable information like we talked about. When you are constantly putting yourself in a position to think bigger, your business will evolve in big ways too. And now that you have this weekly planning system to focus on the right tasks, you're probably wondering, well, what exactly should I be putting on my weekly list? What are the most important activities that actually build a 6-figure or beyond creative business? There are really only 4 major categories of skills that I have found separate 6-figure creative businesses from everyone else. And most artists are wasting time on all of these other activities that don't actually move the needle. When I figured out what those 4 skills were, everything changed for me. I went from working 60 hours a week, making just a few $1,000s a month, to working part-time hours and generating over 7 figures in annual sales across multiple businesses. And if you want to know exactly what those 4 skills are, the ones you should be prioritizing in your weekly planning system, click this video right here on the screen. I'll break down each skill and show you exactly how to develop them so you can finally build the profitable creative business that you have been dreaming of.